Today on The Briefing Room, I'm joined by Dr. Will Crowe, co-founder and CEO of HEO. Will's path is not linear. He starts as a PhD researcher in astrodynamics, explores asteroid mining, and realises his work can solve real problems in orbit. That insight became HEO. This episode is about moving from research to execution, building in deep tech with long timelines, and what it really takes to operate in orbit. Welcome to The Briefing Room. Whether you're in defence, investing into the future, or simply curious about how great ideas become reality, this is your mission briefing. Let's get started. All right, Dr. Will Crowe, founder of HEO. So good to have you on our podcast, especially in person, and here in your hometown.
Yeah, we were just talking before we started that our office is just one block from here. So thank you for coming. We
don't get to record many in-person podcast sessions because we're based in Brisbane, and then anything other than that, it's normally virtual. But we're down here for unpack 2025, which you're playing a part in a few different areas. But first of all, let's get a bit of an introduction to HEO, what it is, how you started it. Let's get the background story.
So HEO is a company where we take photos of satellites, and we do it by flying past with other satellites with cameras on. And as we fly past, we'll turn the satellite around just in such a way that we get a great photo of the object that we care about that we're flying past. And then we'll get that photo back on the ground. We'll build some intelligence picture about it from the information from the photo itself and some other information externally. And then we'll provide that information to our customers. And our customers are primarily today defense and intelligence agencies. And these are people that really want to know what's up there because space is a critical part of the future battle domain. And understanding what's happening in space, how some space assets from adversary nations might be used to disrupt your space assets, that's really critical for our customers. So that's what we do.
It sounds like such a futuristic world that you're playing in, but one that's happening right now. How did you even start? First of all, what took you up to space? Let's go there.
Yeah. Well, when I was 12 years old, Peter, I saw a movie called Star Wars.
Was it? I was hoping that was going to be brought up in here, but yeah.
Yeah, so I saw that movie, and I was a dinosaur guy before that, or a dinosaur kid.
And you are not the second guest on the podcast who's had an interest in dinosaurs. There's a theme, and he also works in space. So I don't know what it is about dinosaurs in space, but let's find out.
It's definitely cliched, but there you go. But I guess what's different about us from most other people is that we acted on that cliche and acted on that impulse. So ever since then, I've been trying to find out how to get into the space industry and impact space. And so my primary school teachers at the time had no idea how to guide me. They were telling me all sorts of nonsense, which I now know is untrue. Yeah. But I get it. They
wouldn't have known though, would they? Wouldn't have known the right details.
In country New South Wales that just hadn't thought that much about space. And so didn't really know how to help me. A kid who was going into getting career guidance and, the next few years had a few interesting conversations, and none of them knew how to help me out.
So we're talking high school. You had an interest in space, and you said, I really want to get involved in space. Like, what was what was the desire then? You wanted to learn about it, study it, go into space. What was the interest level?
Well, a really quick aside. So I used to, in primary school and in early high school, I used to primarily be good at English vocation. Sorry, English.
So we're not talking science, maths?
Writing, not science, maths.
So you're making up stories about going to space.
Exactly. But suddenly, I think it was year 8, we had our first astronomy component in science. And I suddenly got incredibly good at science. I think I got close to 100% in all my tests. And I was like, oh, actually science is easy.
Because you had an interest.
That was missing. Yeah. So that was incredible how Star Wars took someone that thought he was going to be a writer or a lawyer or something. And now I'm terrible at all those things. And it's because I was just so engaged by Star Wars, which, to be fair, is a story and a beautiful one. And it just took me from being good at kind of English into be good at science. And then my teachers, they finally got cluey. They were like, actually, this kid maybe is on something about this space stuff. And they were like, actually, you're going to have to be good at maths as well. And so I became good at maths too, where I was really bad kind of earlier in my life. So that's kind of how things developed.
So if they couldn't help you in your careers guidance, what happened then? You obviously entered university. Did it get better?
Yeah. Well,
the
I
options?
was very lucky. In year 10, I think they gave us a book of all the courses you could study in university. And I was like, okay, where do I find space? I didn't find space, but I found aerospace. And I was like, cool.
Yep.
That's what I need to do. I need high grades. Great. Okay. I need to be good at math and science. Great. So yeah, that's where I went from there. And all of this was when I was living in the Albury-Wodonga region, just outside of there. So rural New South Wales. And, but yeah, fortunately, there was just a trickle of information where I could piece
there
this
was
together.
not a lot.
Yeah, totally. So that's how things happened there.
And then from there, you ended up doing a PhD.
That's right. Yeah, did not expect that.
Did you go back and do the PhD, or is this something you did as a continuation?
I did. So I did undergraduate aerospace. Yeah, I was a bit of a kid from a rural background. I spent some time in Perth after that and then came back to New South Wales to do university, but really a dumb kid, didn't really know much about life. So there was a lot of that in university. And so it took a while, had to re-find my passion in space to get really high grades in the end. But it was touch and go for a minute there. And then fell off a bit of a cliff. It was like, okay, well, where are the jobs in Australia? I wanted to remain here in country. And I was like, okay, well, what space jobs are there? What aeronautical jobs are there even? Turns out there aren't many. So I think the statistics haven't changed much, where something like fewer than 10% of aerospace graduates, there's something around 600 that graduate annually, but fewer than 10% of them even today get a job in the aerospace field. So we've got this huge number of students and people that are passionate about this space. And we spend a lot of on aerospace in Australia as well. We just spend it on international goods. So it means we have this kind of industry that doesn't exist, and all these kids have to find jobs elsewhere, primarily in finance. So we've got all these great financial products made by aerospace engineers.
Amazing.
And mining, but not many of them turn up in aerospace. And I was one of those. So I went into the rail industry.
Into the rail industry.
Which I found incredibly boring.
I was going to say, you could not get further away from space than to go not only land-based, but stuck to the land with rail. Yeah. And probably in regional areas. Or did you get to stay here?
Around Sydney, yeah. Okay. So Sydney has a big train network, and it's actually a quite interesting network. It does go into regional New South Wales as well, so I did work on some of that. This might come up later, but I was working on condition monitoring and predictive maintenance in the rail industry, and I think there's actually huge applications to the space industry. So it wasn't for naught. But yeah, definitely not what I was passionate about. So after 2 years, I packed up and went with my partner to live in the Netherlands for a year.
Wow. And did anything interesting happening there in terms of the interest in space?
A little bit. So I tried to write a novel. I was like, well...
So the creative and the English skills.
I used to be good at English. Surely I could write a novel. Turns out I'm no longer good at my English skills. So if that was a failed experiment. So I did write a lot, but definitely not a full novel. It's unfinished. But found out, actually, I am an engineer now.
You are an engineer.
But yeah, got inspired there because actually when I was in the Netherlands, this was 2012, 2 asteroid mining companies came out of stealth. So one was called Planetary Resources.
So it was asteroid mining.
Asteroid mining, thank you. I do slur sometimes there.
I think you just get so excited.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, I'm sure you said asteroid mining, which is a whole... Yeah. You're right. We only started here. Well, the everyday person who isn't deeply involved or aware of space it's only really been talked about recently. I'd say in the last 10 years, maybe
definitely.
Less, longer.
Yeah, definitely only just over 10 years. And there were these 2 companies that came out of stealth. So in the space community, we've been talking about asteroid mining since before space became a thing. So people knew about asteroids. We knew that the resources were a little bit different from planetary bodies. And we knew that there was a way to exploit that. This was all before spaceflight really became a thing, which was incredible. But it really came into the consciousness of the rest of humanity, I would say, and not even permeated fully. But in 2012, 2 companies came out and I was just so excited. Because part of my undergrad research, I was looking into asteroid mining then, and it looked to me like there was this chicken and egg scenario. And I was like, wow, without there being resources, the funding won't come. Without the funding, you can't find the resources.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, give up and go into trains.
It all sounds too hard.
Yeah, totally. But what I didn't know about was Silicon Valley.
Yeah, okay.
So that was that discovery.
So you didn't have any exposure yet to the startup world or big tech companies as yet?
None whatsoever.
No.
I knew about Elon Musk, but that was only because he was making huge strides in rockets, and only really notionally knew about him at that point. He hadn't actually achieved quite a lot at that point. But these asteroid mining companies coming out of stealth, that was the aha moment.
Right.
So, yeah.
And then what happened? You obviously got more, went down the rabbit hole.
Well, came back to Australia. I was like, wow, I've got to help these companies.
Okay.
What's the best way to help these companies? Do research. So I did a PhD.
In?
Asteroid mining.
Asteroid mining.
Here in Sydney at UNSW. And specifically looking at what we call astrodynamics. That's how do satellites fly around planetary bodies, one of which is an asteroid.
Right. Had anybody else done a PhD similar or in this space?
Well, I had another colleague at the same university at the same time looking at asteroids, and globally there were a few, not many, I would say. So there are a few of us. There are a lot more now. So I think that first wave was actually fundamental in helping more people get exposed to the field and think this is something that they could do.
And so what did you learn? What were the outcomes? What were some key takeaways from all of that years of hard work?
Multiple years. Yeah. So actually, one of the most exciting things, I wrote a paper about it. I wanted to win a competition and go to this big conference called the International Astro IAC, it's called. Maybe we'll cut back.
It'll be something,
International
It'll come to
Astronomical, something like that. Wanted to win a prize there. I wrote this paper. And one of the big findings that I'd looked at in the PhD, NASA was, for planetary defense reasons, they were sharing all the asteroids coming close to Earth. And it turns out that there are a couple of 100 asteroids coming closer than the moon every year that we know of. There's probably more that we don't know of. And so I was looking at those and I was saying, actually, hang on, we don't even need to leave orbit to look at these asteroids. We're paying NASA billions of dollars to go to these asteroid missions, and these asteroids are so far away, but we could just be looking at the ones right in our backyard, and you don't even need to break orbit. You can just stay in an orbit around the Earth. So that was the biggest takeaway, and that information actually became the starting point behind HEO, believe it or not.
Right. Okay. And so then what led to, well, first of all, you did your PhD. What industry were you operating in then, work-wise still?
During the PhD, I was fully researching, so teaching students, doing my research at the time. Kind of wrote this paper to win this prize. Actually won the prize, which is great.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. So went to it was held in Israel that year. So went to Israel to do this. This was 2015. And when I was there, everyone cared about asteroid mining.
You found your people. You found your people. How good.
Here's the problem, Peter. I thought that it wasn't, my people weren't just there. I thought I'd just not had these conversations with everyone else in the world, and everyone globally cared about asteroid mining.
Right.
So HEO was started about a year after that.
Okay.
On the premise that everyone in the world cares about asteroid mining.
Right. And you were the person to take the message.
Exactly.
You were the messenger.
Exactly. Well, firstly,
you were going to be the messenger.
Originally, it was like, okay, well, these asteroid mining companies are not doing that much. So all I need to do now, started this research, didn't really help them that much. Now I'll start a company and that will help them mine these asteroids.
Yep.
So that was and the way I'm going to do it is by looking at these asteroids passing really close to Earth, and we'll do it very cost effectively.
So talk us through that method. So I want to know, what does it look like to pass by these asteroids cost effectively? What's involved?
Well, firstly, it's about getting cameras on satellites. So you might notice a trend here with our current business.
Yep.
And secondly, it's about knowing when these asteroids are coming past, and then opportunistically maybe expending a little bit of fuel to zip out past them. And as the asteroid kind of gets at its closest pass to Earth, you're kind of zipping past with a satellite. So you're getting these very fast fly passes of these asteroids, and you're building up a picture of those asteroids as you fly past.
So can you go back a couple of steps? There's satellites in the sky, up. And how many? Can you just paint, for everyone who's not sure yet, how many satellites are we talking we have access to
Yeah.
How far away are they? And how do you mentioned you get some cameras on satellites. It made it sound really easy.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
You made it sound like
it's actually really hard. Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
that's what I really want to understand is how many satellites are we talking? What does it look like? And how do you get a camera on to some?
So firstly, the number of satellites is growing exponentially right now. So 5 years ago, when we started taking images, there were fewer than 2,000 active satellites, I believe. Today, that number exceeds 10,000. And I believe over the next 7 to 8 years, that number will exceed 100,000. So the number of satellites is exploding. And the reasons are clear. Like, we're getting so much benefit here on Earth from satellites zipping around. And
who are they? Like, who's putting them up there? Like, what are they doing?
There's companies like Elon Musk, SpaceX, so these
are the ones. So this is the names we hear, but all of the others we're not sure about.
Yeah, totally. So SpaceX, Amazon have a lot of satellites as well. But now we're also seeing all sorts of other companies. So we've got companies doing Earth observation, seeing what's happening on Earth. So that's companies like Planet or Black Sky or Satellogic. A lot of these companies are our partners today.
Because you're putting your cameras on their satellites?
Well, we're using, this is where it gets really cool. We don't even need to put our cameras on their satellites.
Right, they already have some?
They've already got great cameras.
Right.
They just were looking at the Earth. Turns out most of Earth is actually water, which I think, we all know, but it makes sense to say it again. So the majority of the time, they're not observing the Earth because they're over water. Yep. They're over the night part of the Earth as well and other places. So what we found pretty early at HEO is that these satellites are used less than 5% of the time.
Okay.
And if we could find a way to turn them around and look at other objects as they're flying past and taking photos of them, we could find a different monetization opportunity for these
an existing asset that's up there.
Exactly. And then we save money. We can get to space really quick because they're already up there. And we can help our customers immediately. So that was the insight.
How do you pitch that for the first time? And who did you choose first? You've had the ideas like they're facing this way, taking pictures of Earth some of the time.
Yep.
If we turn them this way, we can take pictures.
Exactly.
Or images.
Exactly. So quickly, first, there was a transition from asteroids so we went through an accelerator program at the university, found out that we had no customers because asteroid mining is still not a mature industry. So we're looking out for other people to kind of sell to. And I was looking at the Australian Defence Force, and there was someone who was working in space situational awareness for the Defence Force on LinkedIn. So I messaged them on LinkedIn and got a message back within an hour, which was amazing. They got us this answer back and said, yes, this would be interesting. What we didn't know at the time, and even today I think is underappreciated, turns out the US government has been doing what we do at HEO for the last 5 decades.
Right.
They were just totally secret about it. So you couldn't even name the name of this technology outside of special protected rooms. So what we were proposing at HEO, turns out they were already doing.
And have
they
been
thought
doing.
No one like us could ever replicate that technology because they had all the resources of a nation state behind them. And at the time, we were just 2 guys in a garage in Sydney.
This is the best story.
Yeah, well, they were very surprised when we actually started producing imagery. So we started working with these constellations in orbit already. We're able to turn those satellites around just using our software and getting satellite images of satellites. And when the US government saw them, they freaked out.
Yeah, I bet they would have.
Yeah.
You mentioned they're using your software to turn them around. Can we go back to that part so we actually understand what HEO does and what your core offering is? What are you doing here that enables what the outcome you're searching for to happen up there?
Well, I think, Peter, I like where you're going here because most people think that you need to build a satellite to be part of the space industry, and we did too. So what we didn't realize was how underutilized space assets were, how versatile they could be with the right software, et cetera. So originally we're like, well, damn, we can't get any money to build this satellite. What we're going to do instead, we actually got a little bit of money from Defence in Australia, $30,000, could you believe, Australian dollars. And they said, okay, well, if you can test what you're doing just using your software on someone else's hardware, then, here's some money and we'll, no questions asked. All you have to do is write a report on it because we only have budget that we can give you to write a report. So we're going to give you budget to write a report.
The report's really important.
It's very important.
Very important.
So we wrote a report on taking these images. But in taking these images, we'd broken 5 decades of US dominance in space-based imaging. They used to call it SAT squared. They now call it non-Earth imagery. That's the domain we play in. And just for 30,000 Australian dollars, we turn on the head what the US government thought only they could do.
2 guys in a garage.
Yeah.
How good.
Yeah.
But scary for them.
Very scary.
Or alarming.
Alarming because they had to deal with the fact that software had changed the game.
Yes.
That companies could be made elsewhere in the world, not just the US. So now they couldn't just regulate US companies. They had to think more globally and think if a partner like Australia can now develop and deploy this technology, what does that mean for us? So actually, after our technology came out, they had to start a deregulation process, and that's been finalized now. And so now the US has been deregulated. They also had to start thinking about declassification.
Wow.
So now we can see what the origins of their own journey was, which was in the early 70s. And they were accidentally passing by Soviet spacecraft and imaged them accidentally and found out that this was possible. So, but then 50 years later, the same effort happened in a garage just with 2 guys in Australia.
And here we are.
Yeah.
It's quite similar to, I mean, it's a little bit like the Airbnb of underutilized space assets where you can now use technology to give them different purposes, right?
Totally. Yeah. And I think there's some hubris in the space industry where we're like, well, everyone's analyzing everything. Everyone's so smart. So, of course, they're utilized as much as they can be. That's just not true.
No.
Yeah. People in space know a lot, but they've got huge gaps in knowledge. So I think more entrepreneurs should get into the space industry and defense industry and help these guys, because if we don't, then asymmetric technology is going to come from adversaries.
I'm really glad you brought that up, talking about entrepreneurs getting involved with this industry, whether it's space, defense, or the combination of both. What sort of skills are needed the most? Because unless you hear about the opportunities, I mean, your journey was quite... There's a lot of twists and turns there to get to where you have ended up. And now you can see the opportunity because you are there, but you wouldn't have seen it unless you had taken all those various steps. What sort of skills do you see that are needed from either entrepreneurial landscape or startup skill sets, fast-moving people, smart researchers coming into the field? What's needed? So
we went through Y Combinator and we take a lot of that information to heart, even before we went through the process. Like we learned a lot from Paul Graham in particular, but Y Combinator in general. So I think having a huge depth of knowledge because you're just so curious and you want to learn about things, I think that's been really helpful for us. And I'm so keen to get people that have studied in different ways. And I'm really excited about the Australian opportunity because I think there's a lot of great research happening. And then for whatever reason, I've got my own thoughts about it, but for whatever reason, that's not commercialized. And I think there's huge opportunities there.
We do spend a lot of money on research.
A lot. Yeah. And what do we have to show for it? So yeah, would love to talk more about that if that's interesting.
Well, you have lived experience on how to actually commercialize that, but that's you doing it personally. It's not so much come from the university as such. That was your personal drive.
Exactly.
Do you think it's more of an the individual's responsibility? So let's say individual researchers looking to commercialize their own work opposed to relying and waiting for universities to do. I think it's going to have to be. Yeah. I
think implicit in that thought is the assumption that someone else is better at thinking about how to put your technology into a commercial ecosystem. And that just can't be true because usually there's so many complexities that, you've got to think long and hard about this. And if a commercial manager at a university is trying to do that for 100 technologies, I just don't see how that's ever going to happen. So I think you've got to take personal responsibility to get this out there.
So from research to entrepreneurship, Y Combinator was in between. Was that a big part of helping you transition from researcher mindset to entrepreneurial mindset or learning the business acumen or even the pace at which you need to be moving?
Yeah, so we did 2 accelerators. One was a university one, which was very good actually at UNSW. So that originally helped us understand, actually, we don't have any customers in asteroid mining and we're able to reach out to other customers. Y Combinator was, and after that, we just thought, we're never doing an accelerator again unless it's Y Combinator. Y Combinator was about us ensuring that we could be the best in the world and no one else could beat us. And I think we were able to convince ourselves of that. post that. So I think going through Y Combinator is valuable for Australians in particular, because we are in the tall poppy environment. So if we go through Y Combinator, it's like, actually, there's no more questions. We're the best. So,
is that a mentality that is encouraged to adopt in there because of the accelerator?
Oh, we're the best?
Yes.
Definitely not.
No?
No, I think this is, in my opinion,
this is a
journey of Australians.
Oh, okay.
Me in particular, like, I've got tall poppy syndrome up the wazoo. It's terrible. It's really bad because, I think there's two blockers. So one blocker is that you're actually not that smart and someone smarter than you doesn't care and they're going to beat you. Mm-hmm. The other blocker is that you're the smartest, but you assume that there's someone smarter out there than you. So I think that's where tall poppy syndrome comes in. And I think it's good to have that mindset probably the majority of the time, but then it could prevent you from, I guess, being the best in the world and making sure that a technology comes to life. So I think that's a blocker that we as Australians need to get past.
I agree. We need the Americans to do it really well.
They do it great.
I think Steve always says they're born with a pitch deck in their hands.
Yes.
And they do get hyper excited about a lot of things, even if it doesn't warrant a lot of excitement, whereas we tend to be the opposite, have a lot of amazing skills and ability and capability, but don't get excited enough.
I think that's true. Yes.
So we do have a bit of a cultural challenge there to face, and hopefully more people like yourselves keep sharing this kind of a story, especially coming from the research background.
Yeah.
You don't see many.
Yeah. Would love to see more.
Love to see more.
Yeah.
So HEO right now, it is November 2025. What are we looking at for the next 6 months?
It's actually a little concerning to me. So we are the premier space-based imaging platform globally now. And we are producing the most data globally.
Really?
So we're even beating the US government's internal production, which used to be the best in the world.
That's a huge achievement.
By the way, they still take nicer images. So they take very high quality images, but we take a much higher volume.
Okay.
And that brings a different aspect to the intelligence game. So yeah, huge achievement. I guess always worrying to me. I love being an underdog and kind of punching upwards.
Yeah.
So now we've got to think about what our next progress is, and we're thinking carefully about that right now. Yeah, continuing to produce this technology, provide it to those in the world in the allied sphere that didn't have access to this technology, and that's pretty much everyone outside of the US. And the US was typically happy to share data with allies as long as it was in their interests. And I think allies are waking up to the fact that they have their own interests as well, and they need to be conscious of that. So that's really exciting. And that's really what we're focused on over the next couple of years.
You spoke before about, and I talked about getting cameras onto satellites, and you said don't need to. Satellites already have cameras. Is that the case for all of them, or do you actually get involved with the cameras at all, or you do? No,
thanks for mentioning that, Peter. So we do software wherever we can. So when they've got a great camera already, that's great. We are actually exhausting the supply of allied cameras. So there aren't many cameras on satellites left that we don't already use today that we can access. So we saw this coming 5 years ago. We knew that there wasn't enough cameras to meet supply, what we thought demand would be. So we started building cameras here in Australia, and we've now got 7 cameras in space, which is really exciting. So all of them have been built here in Sydney with a supply chain pretty much in New South Wales and ACT, a little bit into Victoria. These are the premier non-Earth imagery cameras, so built specifically for looking at other satellites. And yeah, all being built here in Australia, which is really exciting. We've got plans for hundreds of these cameras, because the need is real, and there aren't, when I say, we're using other people's cameras, so Earth observation satellites are typically in a certain orbit, and getting to different orbits, there's a huge demand for imaging satellites in those other orbits, and there's satellites going up there that we can get access to. They just don't have cameras. So we're building these cameras to provide to these suppliers that can go to these orbits, and we can open up those new orbits for our customers.
I have so many questions.
Okay.
Because it's just fascinating. Before you said, talking about when you first approached your first potential satellite or customer to utilize, what was the pitch back then?
What was the pitch?
What was the pitch? How do you pitch what you were looking to do to somebody who had the satellite?
Actually, this is a really good question, because there is some inside baseball here. So do you remember that prize that I spoke about winning in 2015?
Yes.
Yeah. So that was part of an organization called the Space Generation Advisory Council. And pretty much these are people under the age of 35 that can group together. And what the UN saw in 1999 was that, kind of like farmers, the age of space professionals was in the 60s on average. And that was a problem for succession. So this started in the late 90s, and a lot of interesting space companies have come out of this organization and people who have attended. So we were lucky to attend, and we became part of a type of space mafia after that. So the pitch was hey friend that I met several years ago at this conference, and I've been keeping up relations ever since. How do we get access to your satellite? Because it's kind of, space companies are set up to typically sell to one customer, which is the government. And if you're not the government, they just say no. In this case,
this is why I was so interested in that question, because I'm like, how do you get that first one?
Well, you got to become part of the mafia.
You became part of the space mafia.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't even know there was one. Now I do.
Yeah, totally. And there's probably a mafia in most industries. So it's kind of like,
there definitely is. Most
deals get done over beers. You've got to find out where the beers are being done. I think that's just critical. So
anybody who's listening, who's looking to get involved in space, we now know someone as part of the space mafia. You're going to need to chat to you.
Or in any industry, find your mafia.
Find your mafia.
Yeah.
So obviously the pitch now is different. It is more because you have a business opportunity and offer, a different business case that you're proposing 100%. To these partners.
So now it's a lot easier. We just say, do you want to make more money? This is a way to do it. And by the way, we've got all the technology.
And are they making, what is that business model? Are they making money off
They're making money. Yeah. So we pay our suppliers per successful image capture. So that's where we've somewhat taken control of their satellite during a downtime of the ocean, etc., turned it around, took a photo, and hopefully there's a satellite in frame. And when there is a satellite in frame, then we'll pay our supplier
for that.
So kind of hard to describe, kind of feels like we're renting the satellite.
Yes.
But that's the way it kind of works out. So, and the way, some of the reason is, they're an Earth observation company typically. So that's just the way we
So essentially in you doing this, you've created a whole other business model for them.
Yeah.
To monetize their asset in a way that was never ever probably conceived at the beginning of their journey.
And typically their satellites are super capable. They've got heaps of time available on them, heaps of energy, heaps of downlink capacity, etc. It's just that they were built for like a worst case scenario, and they've got all this capacity. And if they can drive that towards a different purpose, it's almost free money for them if we build the rest of the technology stack, so they don't need to worry about that. And that's what
Is there ever an opportunity where they're benefiting so much from this opportunity that you've provided them that they don't do what they're up there doing previously?
Yes, that is already happening. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was
because all of a sudden there's this new revenue stream.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a little bit concerning to us to begin with. At the end of the day, it's kind of like, we'll try and be a great customer. Yeah, we're an enabler. We'll try and be a great customer. We want other people to be great customers as well. The way we think this works is if these companies are thriving and getting revenue from multiple sources, that we can be a part of that revenue source. But yeah, something, I mean, these are typically public companies. So something that's been confronting is when we're a significant part of their revenue. I mean, it's probably a great thing as well, really. So yeah, pleased to be part of that journey, but it was confronting when we started seeing that.
Yeah, I bet. It's exciting. So it was 2012 when you first realized that there was companies emerging as doing asteroid mining. 2025, you're now the largest producer of data and imagery from satellites. What, 10 years from now, what are we going to be talking about?
Yeah. Well, our vision is to image anything in the solar system on demand, anything rather than everything. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe we could do everything, but really
surely something's going to come out of this as a front runner, as something that you niche down on, or no, you're happy to be broad?
We think it's important to be broad because really fundamentally the problem we were trying to solve was, well, like in our case, it was asteroids and it became satellites. It was like, how do we get smarter about space? A big thing in the space industry that a lot of people say, and I think it's a terrible way to think about things because it's an easy excuse, is space is hard. My satellite failed. Oh, it's okay. Space is hard. That's actually not good enough.
It's not good enough. I'm glad you're highlighting that, and you're lifting the standards, raising the standards 100%. Of space operation.
Yeah. So yeah, I appreciate that. But really, in my opinion, it's kind of like actually cars are really, like internal combustion engines are very hard. Aircraft's hard, but we don't say aircraft are hard or
and so let's
cars
not
are
do
hard,
it.
and so let's not do it.
Or let people off the hook when they get it wrong.
Exactly. It's like us.
They're going to try
aircraft
harder.
crashed into a mountain. That's actually not a good enough
That's a big
excuse.
problem.
That's
There's
a
a big
huge
problem.
problem. And I think it should be true in space as well. So my thought here is that space isn't hard. We're just information poor. And we're about helping them fill that information gap. And really our challenge originally was, how do we image a thing that we know should be fairly easy to image? And why can't we do that? So that was the fundamental challenge. And that's what we're kind of unlocking for people. So we're very happy to go broad. And we think having a single set of infrastructure set up to do space intelligence or space information gathering, that's what we're building here. It's really a baseline infrastructure for the whole solar system. And it'll really, I mean, at the moment it's helping intelligence agencies. It'll help do maintenance and inspection on satellites, which we're really excited about. And that's kind of the next phase that will happen. And it'll help with resource gathering in space as well. At the moment, we lift everything up off the Earth into space. That shouldn't be happening. We should be using resources in space to build other things in space. So we're really excited about all three of those.
That's a whole
technologies.
that's a whole other reality in the industry in itself, isn't
Yeah,
it?
totally. Yeah. It will happen though, and I think the economics are in that direction. So I'm very excited about it.
How far away do you think that is?
Well, it could be very soon. So I think the main problem with resource extraction in space is that everyone's thinking that it's like a huge mine in, Western Australia that took 100 years from someone first going into the ground saying there's iron ore here to the mine that we see today.
Yeah.
That's probably the wrong way to think about it. Probably the better way to think about resource extraction in space is to say, okay, well, when people, first came to a new land, maybe the first thing they did was dug a well to get water. That's the first resources that they extracted. And that's the way to think about it. It's like maybe that's a 2-day
Build
thing.
some other infrastructure around actually doing it to enable the project to happen.
Baby steps.
Kick off.
Yeah. And by the way, people are already extracting resources in space. We just don't think about it that way. So, I mean, several hundred kilograms of moon rocks came back from the Apollo landings. There's been some really cool experiments by the Japanese government. They've just stuck aerogel on the side of the space station and asteroids just hit it. And then they brought it back. So, I mean, you don't need to go out and get this stuff sometimes as well. You can wait for it to come to you. So I think there's a lot of ways forward here, and it's just about getting the right use case. Pitching another company here. One company I'm really excited about is called Interloon. There's great Australian involvement there. It's a US company. But they found a new industry, quantum. And quantum requires a certain element, helium-3, that you don't find a lot of on Earth, but you find a lot of that on the moon.
Right.
And they've just signed, I believe it's $100 million contract to go and get that resource from the moon. That's great. And I think that's the kind of thing we should be going for, because now a handful of this resource can be sold for a very high price elsewhere. And I think there is more of these opportunities. So that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in terms of enabling this in-space resource economy.
So that's a perfect segue into the next question I wanted to ask. And we spoke about this when we were having a bit of a chat before we hit record. And that was around, I think, defense, even space, seems to be a place where normally when you're founding companies or startups, you are looking to solve a problem. And you normally have the problem first and then you come up with a solution. But it seems that for defense applications, you can take existing solutions and apply it to a new problem, which is like the opposite of how normally we operate in business. But in this case, when we're talking about attracting talent, you mentioned before, we need more researchers to think more commercially. What you just talked about then is that future potential for attracting resources or mining the resources is using existing or very smart people who might be researching things and having the commercial application of it. How do we bring those two worlds together? How do you so this is just you sharing one opportunity there. But if more people, and I'm sure if all the young people coming through studying anything to do with space, or young students who have that interest that you had at school knew that was a problem in the future that they could potentially work on, it changes the trajectory of their potential pathways. How do we share more of how do we get school teachers to know that is an industry?
It's really hard, isn't it?
Maybe that one's too big.
It might be. I mean, it's interesting, right? Like, we're encouraging people to do STEM. Obviously, in my case, it was about motivation, and that motivation came from I guess, Star Wars, and then me exploring different ways in which the Star Wars universe could become true. And by the way, there's heaps of great, like a lot of the technologies that we're seeing today in space. I think SpaceX has gone and done something a little bit different to a lot of these, but the majority of technologies we see today were produced in at least science fiction, and typically were researched quite intensively in the 50s and 60s. Maybe we could say there was a different era then, a different way of thinking.
Whereas now we're seeing it come to fruition.
Yeah, exactly. There's that. I think in terms of, I love the way you framed that kind of question there, but I think something that we could do more of in universities, and Interlune's, I think, a great example. I think there are other great examples as well, is how do we bring together people from these disparate technologies? So one of the problems with research is that it's built in kind of like a very straight path, and it's almost like you don't speak to people outside of that.
No, you stay in your lane.
It's a very small lane as well.
It's a small lane.
And the best academics from history were quite general. Like they had friends in all sorts of weird, wonderful places, and they were kind of bringing together very disparate technologies and saying, oh, if I could just do this thing, then I could enable this other thing. And I feel like quantum and space, typically they're very different, and they've been brought together here in a very beautiful way. And I think there's probably something to be said about our experience as well, and saying, actually, if we just have way better software, we can do something totally different in space.
Yep.
And so myself, astrodynamics, pure space guy. My co-founder, Haranya, is a mechatronics guy. So software, electronics background as well. And then bringing those two together is why we're where we are today. So how do we bring together more of these disparate fields? And maybe the more ridiculously far apart they are, the better.
Yes.
Because we'll get more of those kind of intertwinings of different capabilities. So I'm like, how do we do more of that? I guess have more parties and invite more different people to them.
More opportunities to bring people, put them all in the same room.
Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe you need to create something.
Well, I feel like that's
I don't think you're busy enough.
I think that's what you're doing, Peter, with
we're bringing the worlds together. You are.
Because it's kind of like, how do you bring together
all of these different backgrounds? Yeah.
Similar motivation in one way, but then bringing them together and having those conversations. So I think that's important.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, because we could talk for hours, it's been such a fun conversation. I know you're super busy with building this future, but also you're building the future at home. You've got 2 young kids. How young is too young before you start watching Star Wars, do you think?
How young is too young?
When are you going to start putting it on?
Yeah, I think maybe 5.
5?
Yeah, it's going to be quite early, I think.
But is it going to be mandatory viewing in your house?
It's not going to be mandatory, but I think they're going to, my kids love snuggling up and reading a book for now, and I think they're going to love snuggling and watching a movie, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, maybe with your amazing English skills and your book writer skills, I'm not sure what the book was about originally that you started to write.
Anymore, I swear.
Maybe you could bring it back out and write a children's book.
That would be fun.
to inspire the next generation.
Yeah, totally.
I look forward to it. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing an hour with me today.
Thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us in the briefing room. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with the people shaping our national security and future capability. If you liked what you heard, please follow the show, share it with a friend, and join us next time for more stories and insights from the front lines of innovation. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and keep building the future.